I still remember that fateful evening as if it were etched in neon fire, an instant when my worst fears and a forbidden hope collided in a single heart-wrenching moment. Against my pleas, my wife, Elise, slipped out the door to a party I'd warned her about. "Stay home," I begged, my voice thick with worry, but she only smiled, a smile full of secret promises, and vanished into the night. Hours later, what happened next left me utterly speechless. Elise returned not as the timid woman I knew, but transformed, radiant, and brimming with a new, dangerous freedom. In that moment, I realized everything was about to change. I'd always prided myself on our stable, predictable life. We had built our home on quiet routines. Sunday morning breakfasts, evenings spent curled up on the couch, and whispered conversations about our future. Yet over time, I sensed a restlessness in Elise that I couldn't quite understand. I tried to dismiss it as the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship, a phase that would soon pass. But that night, as I pleaded for her to stay, something in her eyes hinted at a desire for something far beyond our safe, if unremarkable, existence. Elise had been invited to a big corporate celebration, a party thrown by one of her colleagues that promised glitz, excitement, and an escape from our ordinary life. I knew the event all too well: crowded dance floors, clinking glasses, loud laughter, and the seductive hum of ambition and possibility. I had warned her, not out of jealousy, but because I feared that in that swirl of indulgence and glamour, she might lose sight of who she was. My caution, however, fell on deaf ears. That night, determined to experience a life beyond the confines of our small world, she slipped away with a sparkle in her eye that I'd never seen before. I spent the evening at home, agonizing over each passing minute and trying to make sense of the creeping dread that took root in my heart. My mind conjured up worst-case scenarios, thoughts of dangerous encounters, reckless behavior, and a woman I loved drifting further away into a life I couldn't comprehend. The hours ticked by slowly, each one heavier than the last, until finally, around midnight, the door clicked open. I hurried to greet her, half expecting disheveled clothes, a stench of alcohol, or even tears. Instead, I found Elise sitting quietly in the foyer, her eyes glistening with something I couldn't immediately place, part exhilaration, part sorrow, and a hint of defiance. Her smile was soft, almost apologetic, yet there was an unmistakable glow in her demeanor. "How was it?" I managed to ask, voice tight with a mix of relief and trepidation. For a long moment she said nothing, and the silence between us was thick with unspoken truths. Then, in a voice that trembled with both excitement and regret, she whispered, "It changed me completely." I felt my heart lurch, a mix of anger and despair coursing through me. "Changed you? How?" I demanded, desperate for some explanation, for any clue that I might still hold a place in her new world. Elise took a deep breath and began to speak slowly, as if choosing each word with care. "I saw things tonight, different people, new ideas, and a side of life I'd never known existed. I danced like I'd never danced before, laughed like I'd never laughed, and for the first time in a long time I felt free. I realized that the life we've been living, our routine, our quiet evenings, was comfortable, yes, but it wasn't enough for me anymore. I wanted to experience everything, to feel everything. I wanted to be more than just a wife in a quiet home." Her confession struck me like a physical blow. I'd always believed that our life, though simple, was rich in its own way. I had assumed that comfort and stability were virtues, things that made a marriage strong and lasting. But here, in the wake of her adventure, I saw a woman transformed by the allure of the unknown. I struggled to understand. How could the same Elise I'd known for years suddenly declare that she was starving for something more vibrant, more intense? The gap between our worlds, once a comfortable distance, now yawned wide open. In the days that followed, the tension between us grew unbearable. Elise would move around the house with a detached air, as if she were an observer in a life that no longer belonged to her. I found myself questioning everything: my own ambitions, the quiet stability we'd built, and even the sincerity of the promises we had made to each other. Every time I reached out to her, whether to hold her hand or to simply share a meal, she would pull away subtly, as if guarding an inner space that I no longer had access to. I spent long, sleepless nights lying awake in our darkened bedroom, replaying the party in my mind like a film with missing frames. I wondered what she had seen, what had changed in her so dramatically that she now appeared both radiant and distant. Had she truly discovered a new self that I was no longer part of, or was this simply a momentary escape from the monotony of our shared routine? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the party had not only revealed a side of her I hadn't known existed, but it had also forced me to confront my own fears. Fears of inadequacy, of being trapped in a life that was too comfortable, and of losing the person I thought I knew. The next morning I tried to salvage some semblance of normalcy. I busied myself with work, immersing myself in the steady routine that had once brought me comfort. I told myself that the party was just one night, a fleeting aberration in an otherwise stable marriage. But the memory of her words, of that transformative experience, lingered in every quiet moment, gnawing at my confidence and leaving me feeling isolated in my own home. I reached out to friends seeking advice and solace, but their responses were a mix of caution and pity. "Maybe she just needed to see what you're capable of," one friend suggested. "Maybe it's a wake-up call for both of you." Yet each conversation only deepened the chasm between my hopes and the stark reality I now faced. I began to wonder if the life I had built, one of gentle routines and quiet assurances, was truly enough, or if I had somehow failed to inspire the passion in her that she so desperately sought. One evening, as I sat at my desk staring blankly at the flickering light of my computer, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Elise. The message was short and cryptic. "We need to talk." My heart pounded as I read and reread the words. Was she reaching out to bridge the gap, or was this another move in a game I didn't know how to play? I replied hesitantly, agreeing to meet the next day. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the silence, I felt a tumult of emotions: fear, anger, sadness, and a sliver of hope. I realized that this moment, this unexpected invitation to talk, might be the turning point I so desperately needed, or it might simply be another chapter in a story of growing apart. In the quiet darkness, I made a silent vow. I would face whatever came next with honesty, even if it meant confronting the painful truth that my marriage might never be the same again. I closed my eyes, the image of her smiling face at the party mingling with the stark reality of that long, lonely night, and I drifted off to a fitful sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring answers, or at least the beginning of a conversation that might one day lead us back to each other. I woke the next morning as if emerging from a long, fevered dream, my heart heavy yet strangely resolute, and the lingering glow of that night still vivid in my mind. The image of Elise, transformed by the party's wild allure and the intoxicating freedom of rebellion, haunted me. I could almost see her eyes glittering with secrets as she returned, her smile both apologetic and daring. In that moment I realized that nothing would ever be the same. The night had ripped open the seams of our ordinary life and left me standing at the crossroads of betrayal, heartbreak, and the possibility of a new beginning. I spent the early hours of that day in a daze, wandering the silent corridors of our home as if it were a museum of memories, each room a testament to what we once were. Our bedroom, once a haven of whispered dreams and shared warmth, now seemed cavernous and cold. The living room, normally filled with the gentle hum of our laughter, lay empty and echoing. I sat in the dim light at the kitchen table, replaying every moment of that fateful evening. I remembered pleading with her as she prepared to leave, her confident smile and the sparkle in her eyes that spoke of an adventure she desperately craved. I recalled the moment she stepped out, and how the party's siren call seemed to transform her into someone I no longer recognized. 4 days afterward, I struggled to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions that had overtaken me. My mind was an unrelenting storm of anger, hurt, and disbelief. I found myself questioning everything about our life. Had I failed to provide the excitement she so desperately sought? Was our comfortable, predictable existence nothing more than a prison to her restless heart? The thought that the very qualities I prided myself on, our steady routines, our simple joys, had driven her away was a bitter pill to swallow. I felt as though I were losing not only her love but also my own identity. Desperate for clarity, I reached out to Elise. Late one rainy afternoon, I sent her a tentative text. "Can we talk? I need to understand what happened." Her reply came slowly, a single line. "Meet me at our favorite cafe." That cafe, with its mismatched chairs and warm, familiar atmosphere, had been our sanctuary in better times. As I sat there waiting, the sound of rain tapping gently on the window, I felt a mixture of hope and dread. Would I hear the truth behind her transformation? Would the Elise I once knew emerge from behind the mask of rebellion? When she finally arrived, she looked different, softer somehow, her once dazzling eyes now holding a trace of sorrow and regret. We sat in a quiet corner, and after an initial silence heavy with unspoken words, she began to speak. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. I thought that if I stepped out of our little world I'd find something more, something thrilling, something that would make me feel alive. But instead I got lost." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "At the party I felt free for the first time in years. I danced, I laughed, I even talked to people I'd never met before. But somewhere in that frenzy I lost myself. I lost sight of what was real. And now, I'm so sorry." Her words struck me like a jolt. I searched her face for the vibrant woman I once loved, the one who had once been my partner in every dream and every quiet moment of joy. Instead, I saw a woman conflicted by her own desires, torn between the lure of wild abandon and the comfort of home. "Elise," I said, my voice wavering, "I need to know, what did you find out there? What was so irresistible that you left our life behind?" She looked away, her eyes glistening with tears. "I thought I was chasing an adventure, a new identity," she confessed. "For a few hours I felt like I was more than just a wife, more than just us. But it wasn't real. It was an illusion, a temporary escape from everything I felt trapped in. I wanted to see what else was out there, but instead I realized that the excitement was fleeting. When I came back, I wasn't the same. I was lost, and I'm sorry for the pain I've caused." The confession hit me hard. I felt a deep sadness, not just for the betrayal, but for the person she had become in search of something she thought she lacked. I realized that our life, though simple and perhaps lacking in flash, was built on genuine moments of love and stability, things that no party, no matter how intoxicating, could replace. That conversation became the first step in a long, arduous process of healing. Over the next several weeks, we met frequently at the cafe, at home, even in quiet parks, trying to piece together the fragments of our relationship. We sought counseling, both individually and as a couple, to confront the deep-seated issues that had slowly driven us apart. In those sessions, we learned that communication was key, that the silent assumptions and unspoken resentments had festered until they erupted in a single devastating moment. I began to understand that my wife's longing for more wasn't solely about the thrill of a wild party. It was about feeling seen, appreciated, and desired in ways that I had inadvertently overlooked. During one particularly grueling counseling session, my therapist asked me, "What do you truly need from your partner?" The question echoed in my mind long after the session ended. I realized that, over time, I had become so absorbed in my own routines and responsibilities that I had stopped nurturing the spark between us. I had assumed that stability was enough, that love would persist on its own. But love, I learned, is a living thing that must be tended to, nurtured with shared experiences, genuine communication, and the willingness to take risks together, even if those risks sometimes lead to pain. With each session, our conversations grew more honest. I admitted that I had sometimes felt inadequate, like I was the safe, predictable one, while she was meant for something more vibrant and adventurous. She, in turn, confessed that she had felt trapped in a routine that left her unfulfilled, that she had yearned for moments of exhilaration that our quiet life simply couldn't provide. There were tears and apologies, moments of anger and longing, but slowly, we began to see that our differences were not irreconcilable. They were simply parts of who we were, two people with distinct dreams trying to weave a shared tapestry of life. I started taking small steps to reintroduce excitement into our relationship. We planned a weekend getaway to a quaint seaside town, no lavish resorts, just a small rented cottage by the shore. The trip was tentative at first, filled with awkward silences and cautious glances, but gradually, we rediscovered the simple pleasures of each other's company. We walked along the beach at sunrise, talked for hours about everything and nothing, and for a few fleeting days the wounds of the past seemed to ease. I realized that the key wasn't to chase grand adventures, but to find moments of genuine connection, to be present and truly listen to one another. At work, my professional life continued to flourish. I immersed myself in new projects, pushing the boundaries of what I had once thought possible. Each success was a reminder of the strength and determination I had cultivated through hardship. My colleagues, too, began to notice a change, not only in my work but in my demeanor. There was a quiet resilience in the way I carried myself, a confidence born of overcoming personal betrayal. I became a mentor to others, sharing my story in ways that were raw, unfiltered, and deeply human. In doing so, I discovered that vulnerability can be a powerful tool, one that not only heals the wounds of the past but also inspires others to embrace their own journeys of transformation. The digital fallout from that fateful night, the viral videos, the online comments, the heated debates, eventually subsided, leaving behind a scarred but quieter internet. I learned to block out the noise, focusing instead on the tangible progress I was making in my life and relationships. I also started a blog where I documented my journey from betrayal to healing. The blog became a space of catharsis, where I poured out my innermost thoughts and offered solace to readers who had faced similar betrayals. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, and it helped me see that my pain was not a solitary burden but part of a larger tapestry of human experience. One evening, as I sat in the glow of a setting sun on our back porch, I reflected on how far we had come. My wife and I had not yet reached a point where trust was fully restored. There were still moments when old wounds flared up and silence fell between us. Yet, there was a palpable shift in the air, a sense that the worst had passed and that, together, we were capable of rebuilding a new foundation. I looked over at her, her expression soft and vulnerable in the fading light, and felt a cautious hope stirring in my chest. I realized that forgiveness, while not erasing the past, could be the key to unlocking a future where both of us learn to live with our scars, transforming them into symbols of growth rather than reminders of failure. In the months that followed, we continued to work on our relationship with a mix of professional guidance, honest conversation, and mutual effort. We began to find a rhythm, a balance between our individual needs and the shared commitment to our marriage. I learned to accept that my wife's desire for more was not a condemnation of our life together, but a reflection of her inner struggles and unmet needs. In turn, she began to appreciate the quiet stability and genuine care that had always been the cornerstone of our union. We started to celebrate the small victories, quiet dinners without awkward silences, a shared laugh over a forgotten joke, a comforting hug that bridged the gap between our past and our uncertain future. Today, as I sit at my desk writing these words, I feel a sense of renewal that I once thought was impossible. The journey from that day of public humiliation and heart-wrenching betrayal to this moment of tentative hope has been long and arduous. I have learned that healing is not a linear path, but a winding road marked by setbacks and small, shining triumphs. The scars of betrayal remain, but they no longer define me. Instead, they serve as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of forgiveness. I know that there will always be days when the echoes of that fateful night resurface. A stray comment, a sudden memory, the quiet pull of regret, but I have built an inner sanctuary strong enough to weather those storms. I have reclaimed my identity, my voice, and my dignity, not by erasing the past, but by learning from it, growing with it, and letting it guide me toward a future filled with honest connection and quiet strength. While my wife's path and mine have diverged in many painful ways, there remains a glimmer of possibility, a chance for both of us to find our way back to a place of mutual understanding, even if we never fully recapture what we once had. The road ahead is uncertain, and trust must be rebuilt slowly, one fragile moment at a time. But as I look toward tomorrow, I do so with a determined heart and an unwavering belief that every day is a chance to redefine who we are and what we can become. In the end, I have come to see that life's greatest triumphs are often born from our deepest wounds. The humiliation, the betrayal, and the raw pain of that night have forged within me a strength that I never knew existed. A strength that allows me to face each new day with hope and a commitment to live authentically. My journey to redemption is far from complete, but I know that every step forward is a victory. And so, I choose to rise, to heal, and to continue forging a future where my worth is measured not by the scars I carry, but by the courage with which I wear them.